The Mid-Norfolk MP Keith Simpson has been leading a debate in Parliament on plans to give Norwich unitary status. The government proposed last month to give the city extra powers, but opponents have launched a legal challenge, arguing that the changes would disrupt services. The government says that unitary status would boost economic growth in the city. Mr Simpson feels that argument has no basis.
The Secretary of State kept referring to advice he had received for the basis of this decision. Who gave that advice? It certainly wasn't either the Boundary Committee or the Permanent Secretary. And what was that advice?
Now, families on an estate in Basildon say they're living in fear of another fire hitting their homes just months after the last blaze.
They all live in timber-framed housing on one of the largest estates of its kind in the country and are now demanding better protection or new homes. Piers Hopkirk reports.
This was the scene last November after arsonists set ablaze which gutted 9 homes. Today they're shored up with scaffold. But as the 6th fire here in just 3 years, it's polarising opinion on the safety of these wooden-clad homes.
It's like a death trap. I mean, I've got an 84-year-old mother-in-law and she shouldn't be living in a place like this.
I'd rather them be pulled down and rebuilt because the area's quite nice. It's just the houses, they can go up so quick, it's frightening.
We're not scaremongering, it's to help people, men, women and children, for the future on this estate. If they're not safe, they've got to come down. They're a danger to life.
The Felmore is one of the largest wooden-built estates in the country. Surveyor Arnold Tarling joined us on a tour of the damaged buildings.
That's a bituminous felt, which will burn quite nicely in a fire. And behind that, plywood. No fire resistance there whatsoever.
His opinion, startlingly frank.
Basically, they're a death trap. The buildings are tinder boxes. The cladding around it is flammable material with no visible fire stopping.
So what would you like to see done here?
I'd like to see all the cladding stripped off. I'd like to see the roof stripped off. And I would like to see it replaced with a system which is Class O fire rated.
Basildon Council says work is ongoing to make the homes safer and less susceptible. Calls to replace them, though, were deemed unrealistic. Rob Fallon, head of housing, said the properties were not built to last a long time and will have to be replaced at some point in the future. However, the cost is currently prohibitive, as 30% of the properties are not owned by the council. This is the Fire Service's report into November's blaze. It blames the rapid spread of the fire on the wooden cladding that covers these buildings. But neither the local housing association nor the local authority has any legal requirement to change it. Their responsibility lies only with common public areas. And that's a gap in the law that means these homes are likely to remain as they are for some time to come. Piers Hopkirk, Anglia News, Basildon.
Moving on to some football, and Southend United may be struggling financially at the moment, but they've given their supporters a bit of a boost by freezing season ticket prices for another year. It's the 3rd year in succession that Shrimpers fans won't face a rise. They'll now be hoping to watch football in League One next season as the club battles against relegation.
Now, then in the 1970s and 80s, when the Cold War was still being played out, it was the SR-71 Blackbird spy plane that helped the United States keep watch on its Russian enemies.
Well, now a former Blackbird pilot has paid a visit to Duxford Imperial War Museum, where they have a decommissioned one to share his experiences. Serena Sandhu has this report.
He's a man who was lucky enough to fly what is quite simply one of the coolest planes ever made. Retired US Air Force Colonel Richard Graham piloted the SR-71 Blackbird spy plane back in the 1970s. And he was at Duxford Imperial War Museum near Cambridge to give a talk about the aircraft. Duxford has one of only 32 SR-71s that were ever built.
Well, the airplane was a treat to fly. A very limited number of people get to fly it, so you feel very honored to be in the program. I came in the program in 1974 and was very fortunate to fly it for 7 years. So, very good airplane.
The SR-71 was purpose-built for spying, or strategic reconnaissance as it's also known. It could fly at more than Mach 3, that's over 2,000 miles an hour, and cruised at an altitude of 80,000 feet, making it virtually impossible to shoot down. Many of Colonel Graham's missions were flown from RAF Mildenhall in Suffolk.
I enjoyed Mildenhall. We always liked coming over to England. There was a lot to do over here, a lot of history that you don't have in the United States, and you know, I liked it so much I even married a Brit.
In its day, the SR-71 was the world's fastest and highest flying operational manned aircraft, and Colonel Graham is one of the very few people who will ever know what it was like to fly one. Serena Sandhu, Anglia News.
Extraordinary sight there. Now, an oil painting by the Norwich school artist Eloise Stannard is expected to fetch more than £40,000 at auction. Painted in 1869 when Queen Victoria was on the throne, the still-life fruit painting shows 3 pieces of the historic Norwich civic regalia silver, which are housed in the Norwich Castle. Now, it goes under the hammer at Keys of Aylsham on March the 12th.
Next tonight, and little Angelina Mills is exactly 9 months old today, but what a troubled 9 months it's been. The youngster, who's from Norfolk, was born with a rare brain disorder, which affects just 1 in 50,000 people.
Well, it means her life has been a heartbreaking series of seizures, sight, hearing and mobility problems. Natalie Gray has been to meet her.
Angelina Faith Mills is so little, but her problems are huge. When she was born with a large birthmark known as port wine stain on her face and forehead, her parents were understandably upset.
Although she's beautiful, and everybody told me she was beautiful, and she is beautiful, but it was very hard to deal with. Very, very hard.
Things got worse when Angelina was 18 weeks old and suffered a seizure.
We see Angelina laying there on the mat. Her arm starts to shake, her hand starts to shake, and she would start to drill from the mouth considerably.
More fits followed, and an MRI scan revealed Angelina had Sturge-Weber syndrome, a rare and incurable neurological disorder affecting just 1 in 50,000 people. In January, her condition worsened, and she had 64 seizures in a month. Angelina from Gresham near Cromer is now taking anti-epilepsy drugs and is under the care of Great Ormond Street Hospital.
She's 4 to 5 months behind in her learning development. She's rolled for the first time this week, which is fantastic. She doesn't crawl. Quite clearly, if she continues to have seizures, we're going to lose a little bit more of her.
So what does the future hold for little Angelina? Well, her family hope that an operation on her brain will control the seizures, but there is a price to pay, because she will certainly lose the use of her left arm, which already has limited movement. Aww. The operation is very risky, and it's too early to say whether Angelina is a suitable candidate. In the meantime, the family want to raise £10,000 for Great Ormond Street Hospital through a skydive charity night and collection. If you'd like to help, the details are on the screen.
A father is the one who protects his family, loves his children, wants to, you know, I mean, that is a father's job, his role. And when you come to a position like we have with Angelina, I feel so helpless.
As the youngest of 4, Angelina could not be more loved. Her future may be uncertain, but there's no doubting this family's devotion. Natalie Gray, Anglia News, Gresham in Norfolk.
Our thoughts with the gorgeous Angelina and her family there.
Yeah, good luck.